we got to talk about the article The Verge just published saying, this is how social media sites fail, and they were referring to Twitter and saying that it shows all the signs of other sites like Friendster and LiveJournal and Tumblr, that this could be a site that's on the verge of failing. And they get into a couple points. They say LiveJournal and Tumblr in particular, because that's part of my era, had a really vibrant culture. It was really user-driven. You could actually build your website on Tumblr. Back in the day, I think it was really peaked maybe 2008, 2012. I think it sold in 2013, I think, if that's correct. But Tumblr was this really kind of like weirdly vibrant community, kind of had a little bit of like, a little bit of Instagram, a little bit of Blogger at the time, and you could do, like reshare parts of your website. It was an interesting place. Some of the things that drove it were it was a super artsy, was very like pornographically artsy, and it had millions of users, and it was really like this creative outlet. It was kind of more of like a rebellious place at the time. And then they sold it to Yahoo. Yahoo killed the nude, got really corporate. The blog sort of era sort of faded with it, and it pushed creators off the platform and then eventually failed. And I think if you really look at what's going on Twitter, if you're not just a headline reader, the community is still stronger than ever. I think the story that we just talked about shows how the key players in the world culturally still use Twitter as their main source of public communication, especially during times when they're culturally relevant or really important. I think even more with Elon driving a lot of that, because Elon's one of the most famous people in the world. He drives a lot of the communication there. He participates in the culture. And I think it got bought by a power user versus got bought by some conglomerate that wants to kind of water it down and make it corporate. And I think if you look at like Facebook, if you look at TikTok, you look at YouTube, it's still some of the founders had played a much longer term role in keeping the environment more of true to the essence of it. And I think that's what ultimately Elon is doing through all the drama. If you're really focused on it, he's trying to keep it a vibrant, community-driven place where you can have these back and forth conversations. He's trying to pull back some of the corporate aspect of it. He calls it woke culture, whatever you want, but he's really trying to foster it as the water cooler of the world, is the way I always describe it. And I'm still seeing very relevant information on it. I'm seeing better and better stuff, more interesting to me on it. I'm actually a Twitter Blue subscriber. I've not seen any crashes. So I'm not saying he's doing everything right. There's definitely lots of room for improvement on Twitter. I don't think the product has degraded at all. I think more power users who are maybe on it longer than me, I may be on it 15, 20 minutes a day, are experiencing it. It's still a great place to go to what's trending, to see what relevant news. So I think while The Verge is maybe part of the coup trying to take down and negatively publicize Elon, I don't think that Twitter is showing the signs that these people think. I do think advertisers are still scared. I do think there's other things, but just like Gary Vee announced, and we'll get into some more Gary Vee news, this is a place that now has a little bit of underpriced attention, and maybe you should be experimenting with some ads. You should be experimenting with some strategies there, and I am seeing lots of entrepreneurs and really smart marketers do really well on Twitter. So I don't think this is a LiveJournal, a Tumblr, a MySpace era. Twitter didn't sell to some random place that wants to water it down and make the product worse. I think he's going to eventually figure out the product roadmap, and you're going to see some good growth. I think there's a lot on the table, and we'll do another video following up to talk about how much I think Twitter could be interesting. And again, he's done some cool things like adding the view count. People haven't. I think that's nice. It kind of gives if you get a limited engagement, you might see, it still reached 2,000 people, but the engagement was low. But you still get to see that you're reaching people. I think that's interesting. I don't think that's super new to social media enthusiasts. But I do think because a power user is the guy leading it, there's going to be a little bit more strategy, a little bit about product-focused improvements. And I think over time, you'll see Twitter go back to growth, even though they're saying all these things that it's the most used ever or whatever, it's still relevant. I just think Twitter really has an identity. And in a world where Instagram and Facebook are struggling with their identity. They're still big, they're still large. TikTok really owns the culture, fun, entertainment community, and it's really winning in some of the education space. YouTube still has that long form thought leader, sort of like long form content. Kids love YouTube. It has a really good brand with kids. If as Meta and Instagram and Facebook find their cultural footprint again, we might see some more growth. We're going to dive into another Meta story right now, but I think Twitter still has that core space where, hey, something's breaking. there's some news. I want to dive in and see what's happening in the world today. Twitter's the best place you're going to get that information. Better than CNN, better than Fox, better than all these other craps. And you're going to get multiple sides of the view. And I would encourage you to always look at multiple sides of the picture. Any news story, the positive, negative, the right, the left, just to understand where's maybe the ground and the truth within that.